Välkommen tillbaka till Bokmässans globala torg. Jag heter Martin Engeby. Jag har precis hållit ett seminarium själv, men jag kommer vara scenvärd nu på eftermiddagen. Och nu byter vi ämne. Vi har pratat om demokrati på olika sätt under hela förmiddagen fram till nu. Och nu byter vi och vi ska tala om FN. FN fyller 75 år i år. De globala utvecklingsmålen, Agenda 2030, fyller 5 och det är verkligen någonting att prata om från olika håll. Vi börjar i ett ställe, FN finns till för att skapa fred. Vi börjar i ett ställe där det fortfarande inte är fred, nämligen Palestina. Seminariet heter Insikter från insidan, unga kvinnliga aktivisters erfarenheter i Sverige och Palestina. Och det är organisationen 1325 som har kommit nu på Bokmässan med en ny handbok om gränsöverskridande arbete kring frågor om kvinnor, fred och säkerhet. Jag låter seminariedeltagarna själva presentera sig, utan nu blir det Palestina. Hjärtligt välkomna.
Well, good afternoon and thank you to all who are listening to us today. Thank you for being with us here today. I'm very pleased to be able to welcome you all to this seminar titled Insights from the Inside, Experiences from Young Women Activists in Sweden and Palestine. My name is Esra Hussein and I am a board trainee at Operation 1325 and I will be moderating this seminar today. So this seminar is also a release of a handbook for board trainee program, drawing experiences from Sweden and Palestine, from the Swedish organization Operation 1325, and from the Palestinian organization named the Palestinian Centre for Peace and Democracy. So just to give you a brief information about these two organizations. So Operation 1325 is a Swedish civil society organization working for the implementation of the United Nations Security Council Resolution 1325. They work both in Sweden and internationally in partnership with other women's and peace organizations. And we have the Palestinian Centre for Peace and Democracy, which is an independent civil non-governmental organization that works in the field of political development and peace. They believe in the complete equality in accordance to the Palestinian Declaration of Independence and the International Convention. So together they have published a handbook drawing from experiences from the Women Mediation School and the board trainee program. And the handbook showcases a methodology for cross-generational work on the Resolution 1325, which is about the Women, Peace and Security Agenda. And we have the Resolution 2250, which is about the Youth, Peace and Security Agenda. So together they work for the mediation skills and political leadership in civil society with examples from Sweden and Palestine. And I would like to mention that this handbook is now published both in the chat down below and also in our social media and in our websites. So I would finally like to welcome our two speakers today. So we have Sara Raziolla, which is a board trainee at Operation 1325. She is from Gothenburg, Sweden. And she's currently studying her second year of her master's in international administration and global governance. And we have, she's also an editor of Utblick magazine for the Foreign Policy Association in Gothenburg. And we also have Ambara Shalalda, which is a board trainee at the Palestinian Centre for Peace and Democracy. She is from Hebron in Palestine, and she is a graduate of applied mathematics. She's also a human rights activist and a social worker. So a very warm welcome to you, to Sara and Ambara. And before we start our discussion, I would also like to invite the audience a very warm welcome to ask questions. You can ask it in via the chat down below, as we are going to have a short Q&A session after our panel discussion. So please feel free to ask your questions. So I would like to just go straight forward into our discussion. And I would like to direct my first question to Sara. And I'm wondering, what do you believe is the role of young people in peace work processes? And why is it important that young women participate in the process of building peaceful societies?
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of important things to consider there. I was just thinking about the fact that he mentioned that it's been 75 years since the UN, and I was also going to mention that it's been 20 years since the resolution 1325 came into practice. So the question that we're still asking, why it's important that women participate in peace building, is kind of crazy, since it's been 20 years and people should have realized how important it is to create a holistic and sustainable peace building and processes. So that's what I want to say.
Well, thank you. I mean, you touched upon a very interesting aspect that, yes, it's somehow important, to discuss it today. I would like to ask the same question for Ambara. So what do you believe is the role of young people in peace work processes and for building peaceful societies? I'm sorry, we can't hear you, Ambara. Okay, no.
Young people are the most affected group in conflict. They are subject or physical and sexual violence and murder. Also, conflict affect their lives in terms of education, opportunities, and security. Therefore, their role is essential in the peace process, policies making and planning, because they are the younger generation who knows the needs of society, and those is most able to build perpetual peace and prevent the resumption of conflict.
Thank you very much. I mean, they, of course, touch upon the importance of thinking that the young people are not only victims of conflict or victims of their societies, but they also have the role of changing and making change and being change makers in the society and for building peaceful societies. And this goes on to our next question, which I would like to direct for Sara again. And as a young woman, what is some of the challenges that you are facing as a Swedish in the areas of leadership for peace and security?
Well, there's the general things such as the social hierarchy that affects me as a person of color, as a young woman, and as a religious minority, and all the other intersectional social dimensions. But I think there's also a lot of improvements which could help me in voicing the importance of participation in peace-building processes. I think there's a lot of room for improvement as well, but I think we're getting there. And obviously, I'm also a privileged person from Sweden who has access to education, so I feel like there's definitely a move towards more participation in peace-building processes.
Thank you. So you mentioned the problem or the difficulty of being, or the challenge of being a minority group, or coming from a minority group, or being a woman of color. So this addresses the importance of having an inclusive work for peace and security, but also having an intersectional perspective, which means that we need to include a diversity of women. We need to include women from different locations, from different ethnic backgrounds, from different religious groups, or from different locations. So I would like to ask the same questions for Ambara. So you, from the Palestinian context, what do you feel or what is some of the challenges that you are facing as Palestinian in the areas of leadership in peace work?
We in Palestine are living in a patriarchal society. Where cleans are dominating the society, and the youth suffer and face a lot of challenges. However, young women suffer double than men. Palestinian is under occupation for a long time, and there is a continuous conflict. Continuous conflict with the occupation, in addition to internal conflict between the two biggest Palestinian political parties, Fatah and Hamas. We did not witness any role for the Palestinian women on the negotiation table between the Palestinians and Israel, nor at the reconciliation meeting between the Palestinian political parties.
Thank you very much. And I would like to direct my last question to Sara. And if you could just shortly mention what recommendations or change that you would like to see the government or the international community to take actions upon to protect women from to protect women who participate in activism and leadership on peace and security. So if you have just brief, short recommendations.
Right. Well, mostly just take women's role seriously, have more work to increase participation, increase visibility, increase representation. There's lots of great practices that just need to be implemented, basically.
Thank you very much. And I will now open up for a question from the public, and I will direct it to Ambara. And if you shortly would like to answer this question. So it says, dear panelists, how may the United Nations become more effective in promoting women's meaningful participation and gender responsiveness in its conflict resolution? So how can the United Nations, what kinds of work can they do in order to improve their resolution? Can you hear me, Ambara? Sara, would you like to take that question?
Sure. So I can just reiterate what I just said. The UN is a very strong political influence. Obviously, a strong, soft power relations. And I think they have the opportunity to make it very clear what's important, and that it's important that women, that the Resolution 1325 is implemented everywhere, and is as well as Resolution 2050.
Thank you very much. And Ambara, can you hear me now? Would you like to add something about how the United Nations could work forward to improve their resolutions? If you have any concrete recommendations or change that you would like to see.
as for my recommendation to the international community, it's follow up with the countries in which conflict occur, to give recommendation on ongoing peace, and to increase international activities, the pressure countries to involve the role of women in decision-making, leadership, and conflict resolution.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And I have another question from the public, and I would like to direct it to Sara. And I'm wondering, how have you changed through this board trainee program, and what are you able and willing to do after participating in this program?
Thank you. Well, I think I've changed quite a lot. I think it's been a great influence in how I see participation, and it's been great to just meet people, other young women who are also very active and very passionate about this subject. So I think that's just made me gain more confidence in my ability, and also the ability of us all as young women to participate in peace-building processes.
Thank you. And another question would be, what are the similarities or differences for young and old women in the experience of discrimination based on age? Ambara, can you hear me? No, okay. Sara, would you like to take that question?
Yeah, sure. Sorry, what was the question?
Yes, so what are the similarities and differences for young and old women in the experience of discrimination based on age?
I mean, of course, there's a lot of similarities. We're still all women, regardless of age. We're still subject to the social patriarchy and all that entails, like violence against women and inequality, different forms of gender inequality. So I think there's a lot of similarities, and the difference could be like what ageism does in form of old women are discarded, while young women are also discarded because we are too inexperienced. So I think there's a lot of similarities and not that many differences, to be honest.
Okay, interesting. Ambara, can you hear me now? Okay, so I would like to direct a question for you, which is about, why do you think that young women don't want to become part of a movement or to be active for social and political change or to take on an elected position? We can't hear you, Ambara. Could you unmute yourself, if possible? We can't hear you, Ambara. I'm sorry. I will have to start concluding this seminar. So I would like to, dear guests, I would like to thank you very much for your fantastic contribution and for sharing with us your insights, your experiences, as well as your recommendations. So it has been an interesting conversation, and as it happens with interesting conversation, they pass on very quickly. So thank you very much for being here with us today. And ladies and gentlemen, and as we end today's event, I would like to thank you all for joining this panel today with us. And as we have discussed, we we have mentioned the importance of having an intersectional perspective, and there are similarities as well as difference from the Sweden and the Palestinian context. So please don't forget to follow us on the social media on Operation 1325 and the Palestinian Centre for Peace and Democracy. Thank you.